See that little spot in the middle? That little spot's an island, 3.5 by 7 miles long. And the name of that island is Mona Island.
Four men from a railroad in New York visit this island.
Well, after a year and a half of planning, it was finally time to pack it up and get to Puerto Rico. We built a box, 4 foot by 8, 2.5 feet high. In it, we had to put all of our equipment. And here's a piece of equipment that was built by Claude. It was a combination diving compressor, AC/DC generator, and water pump. That thing came in real handy. On a cold March winter day in Armonk, New York, Lee is getting ready for his first great adventure. Over 3,000 miles from New York to Puerto Rico. With stops along the way, but I believe it was Great Inaugural Island. It was 550 miles of open water. Nothing but Lee and gasoline. In those days you didn't have GPS, but you did have Loran, but you had to be close within 100 miles in order to get a mark on it. But he got in, and away he went. Well, we were all there in Puerto Rico waiting for Lee when he landed. When he got out of that plane, he was like a 92-year-old man. He couldn't even stand up, but he made it. Well, after a 10-day strike up in New York, a dock strike, we finally got our stuff. Lee and Timmy went by air, and Paul and I and the equipment went by boat, and we finally got to Mona Island. What a beautiful sight. Our trip out there by boat was quite an adventure. We had hired this captain who didn't speak any English with a 26-foot boat. Well, he wound up in Mayaguez on the end of a rickety dock about 100 yards long. That boat couldn't possibly hold our box, so we had to take everything out of the box, take it to the boat, put it down below, and shove the box on top. Then we threw our 16-foot boat across the bow, and in the middle of the night, we took off for Mona. Paul and I and two guys who didn't speak English. Well, after about 2 hours, you couldn't see land, you couldn't see nothing. Nothing but the moon and these iridescent little animals that was in the water down there that glowed in the wake. Pretty soon we realized that we were hungry with all this confusion. We never ate. So Paul had packed something, and he found a can of beans. We put it on his inboard motor, and pretty soon it warmed up. Boy, that was the best can of beans I ever tasted. Pretty soon we could see a light flashing out there, and we knew it was the lighthouse of Mona. And we finally knew that this guy knew where he was going. What a relief. He just kept sailing with his foot on a rudder, saying, "It's okay, okay." That was his total English language. As soon as daylight came, there was Lee, buzzing us with the plane. And we were all finally on Mona Island. Well, the captain eased the boat through the Sardinera Reef, came into the dock, and we docked the boat. Here's a picture of that 16-foot boat that we brought out with us. Well, we started unpacking all our stuff on the dock. We had made a little wagon, which was very helpful because we had to take it up to the Ponderosa, which was a building that was built in 19 25 by a CCC camp that was out here to develop forests. And it was about a quarter of a mile away. So we packed it all up and we started up to the Ponderosa. Ponderosa was the main mess hall for that CCC camp. It had one big open room, then it had a storage area in the back, two other rooms. One room we screened off for sleeping, and the rest of it was wide open. But it was better than a tent. Here's a picture of the boat that we came out on. That thing was right down to the waterline, and one wave would have sunk us for sure. And here we are on the deck of the Ponderosa, getting everything squared away and looking at our beautiful view. And everything was starting to be hunky-dory. Now we were on the leeward side, which had all the beautiful sandy beaches. If you went south, you went to a place called Carabinero, and then from there you went on to Caigo no Caigo. Then around the bend, you'd finally come to where the lighthouse was on the wayward side. The lighthouse was manned by 3 U.S. Coast Guard men, and every 10 days they changed and brought supplies in. That's the road that they use to go down to the dock, and that little thing in the bottom right is called a tubos. That was built by the mining company back in the 1800s. They had a railroad going through here. There were a lot of holes like this, entrances to caves. If you looked out, it would look something like this, or maybe something like that. They were all over the place. This island was honeycombed with caves. One day when Lee was flying around, he spotted this old Jeep. And he came back to the Ponderosa and told us about it. He said, "Boy, if I can get that Jeep here, I know I can get it to run." Well, we conned the Coast Guard men into towing that Jeep back to the Ponderosa. And when Lee got back from the mainland, we told him we pushed it there, and he better get it going. Well, he took one look at that, started writing a list, and started flying out and flying back, getting parts. He worked on that sucker for about 10 days, and he got it going. Well, while they worked on the Jeep, I worked on the boat, cutting off one of the bows and making a transom for our motor. And pretty soon, they were almost complete with the Jeep, and I was just about complete with the boat. And guess what? The Jeep ran, and the boat didn't sink. It ran also. And boy, we had everything. Everything. We were ready to go treasure hunting. But then Lee decided we need to have showers. That's right, we have to build a shower. There was a 10,000-gallon cistern behind the Ponderosa, and Lee found a watering hole of fresh water. So We went with the Jeep and the water pump and started pumping water into that 10,000 gallon cistern. Took about 3 days, I think. And he filled it. Well, after that amenity was completed, we had just about everything. But there was one other thing we needed. You guessed it, an outhouse. So we dug a hole and built the building and put in a toilet, toilet paper, and the magazines. And now we had all the amenities that we needed. It was just like being at home. Within the caves of Mona, there were bats, thousands of them. That's what made the guano that the fertilizer company shipped out of here in the 1800s. There were large turtles there, and all kinds of sea life. Here's a picture of a shark that we caught. And there were all kinds of insects there too. But most notably was the iguana. That sucker got about 6 foot long, and they were all over the place. We tried to photograph him several times. There he is in the middle. But they're very timid and shy, and they run like a son of a gun. Also brought with them goats and pigs, and their ancestors are still there today. People come from the mainland out to Mona to go hunting for wild boar and pigs. We had many visitors while we were out on the island. The people came to see the gringos, or the treasure hunters. We had many famous people. The owners of Don Q rum and the owners of India beer, they came out with their air-conditioned boats and their chefs. And boy, for 24 hours we did nothing but eat and drink in a nice air-conditioned comfort. I'll never forget that. And we had plenty of parties out there. There, people, when they came out for their hunting, they'd gather together at night and we'd have parties. They were wonderful people, and we sure enjoyed their company. Here's a picture of me doing a Sunday morning breakfast, and a very rare picture of all 4 of us enjoying that Sunday morning breakfast. Aside from the initial groceries that we brought out by boat from Mayaguez, we had to continually go in and get our supplies. Even our water had to come in from the mainland. So we would at least go in once a week and bring supplies back to us. That first grocery list was quite interesting. We went into a grocery store and we told the manager, for every can, we want a case. Well, little did we know that evaporated milk came 48 cans to a case, and we ordered 4 cases. When we left Mona Island, we left a lifetime supply of evaporated milk there. And I don't know about the rest of them, but it took me 20 years before I could eat canned Spam again, because that we had a ton of.